processing this out. Today's January 16th, 2025. Got a lot of thoughts in my head. A lot. So here we kind of settled on. What is the stronger power? Willpower or desire? And in the context of desiring things in your life that are not life-giving, but life-taking. As a young person, all my friends drank alcohol, smoked pot, all that stuff. They didn't do it around me. I was never around it. It was kind of on the out cusp of where I was because I didn't do it. Never done it. Didn't want to do it. So that temptation for me, I was protected from it. I looked at my friends, people around me in my circle, and watched their behavior and their lack of proper behavior. And I just remember thinking, I don't want to put anything in my body that's going to take away from my decision making. And that's what I understood alcohol, drugs, stuff like that to do. You know, I wanted to be me and to make the decisions. So I'm very thankful for that. That wasn't a temptation of mine. Because my willpower was stronger. And sure, I've thought about it every now and then through the years. I'm like, what would it really hurt? And I'm like, nah, that's okay. And then I always move on. So when a desire versus willpower, is your willpower strong enough when you have a desire that is detrimental to your heart? And nobody talks about it. And if they talk about it, I hadn't heard it. But I have thoughts on it. It's tough. It's tough when we're in the flesh. It's tough when we're only seeing in front of us. It's tough when we don't see how this affects us on a cellular level, really. Deciding things that aren't life-giving. Choosing to do things that are detrimental to our heart. And in the moment, the desire, passion, we can say, choice, sometimes like, well, it doesn't matter, or maybe thought process of who cares, that wanting to feel needed, loved, wanted, wondering, that type of thing. Being in the moment and not thinking about how events will affect our future self, even a moment from now. So when we don't know who we are, and we don't have that place to reference to fall back on, I believe that we are swayed and shifted with the world's version of who we are, which is not who God intended us to be. So then when we don't have the grounding, when we don't have the maturity, when we don't have the healing, the understanding of why we feel the way we feel, to actually look at the root cause of that, and we just do what we want to do when we want to do it. And I can relate. I can absolutely relate. And then it's detrimental to our heart. I'm not even talking about how it affects others. So I had thought of a little scenario. I'll see if it'll come back to me about, looking at all of this. So which one are we going to do? Are we going to build a solid foundation, which is with Jesus, who God calls us to be, the calling upon our life, the truth of who we are, not what the world tells us, not the world's opinion, but who we are? When we can look in the mirror and forgive ourselves for making decisions, forgive ourselves for dropping the ball, forgive ourselves for being a disaster, and deciding that that's not the person that I want to be, and realizing that at any moment of any day we have a choice to stop, to draw a line in the sand, to turn 180 degrees and go a different direction. Any moment of any day you can start new. I remember a couple of decades ago, I was getting my nails done. I feel like it's when the little nail salon was at Walmart. And I remember sitting there to get my nails done, and there were two younger women in there. They were getting pedicures, and they were sitting in the pedicure chair. And one of them in particular, she had dark brown hair. She was just wearing a t-shirt and some jeans, and she was laughing. And you could just tell that her life, her energy of that moment was very light. Things were funny to her. She seemed genuine. And I just remember noticing her and her friend communicating and just being there. And I remember thinking, that's who I want to be. I want to be light and good and funny and friendship, and not to be where I was at, which was just really heavy. I remember that. And so today I can say, that's me. Even situations, circumstances, they come and go. And some are heavier than others. But in general, that's who I am. That's who I am. Try to keep short accounts. That looking for the good in a positive way. And walking this out because I know that God loves me. Because I have that foundation from the path that I've walked. And if I wouldn't have walked that path, I wouldn't be who I am today. So for me to remind myself of that. So when our desire takes us away from that path, and the desire doesn't have to be fancy and elaborate, can be. Desires of the flesh, desires of consumption, having disorder in our life, not having the willpower to get that under control. So the desire to buy, the desire to overeat, desire to overspend, the desire to numb out on our phones or on TV. Because it is a choice. Even if we don't feel like it, it's still a choice. You have that time, and you're choosing what you do with it. So having the desire to not walk in a wholesome manner, to not protect what comes into your life from the environment that you're around, the music that you listen to, the words that you say, even the way that we dress, all of that is a choice. And that all comes back to, who do I want to be? Who am I called to be? Because I have a choice in that. Am I going to give in to the desires of the flesh? Or am I called for a greater purpose and plan? And I'm going to walk that out. And when we're in it, we don't see it. And when we have people around us that don't call that out in us from their walk, I do believe you are a good combination of the people that you hang out with. So you got to be careful with that. Be careful of who you're allowing to influence you when you don't know who you are. And some of it is the developmental stages of our brain. With our frontal lobe doesn't finish developing in our brain until we're about 25. So good grief, some decisions are made that are life-giving and detrimental. And of course, later in life also. But a lot of our stuff, like heard people talking about, their childhood and such, how soul wounds are established there, and then through adolescence, those patterns. So it's like these things that happen to us, against us, around us, or whatever. And those developmental years that impacts the rest of our life, but our brain isn't finished developing for us to make decisions, for us to understand the consequences. And I don't know if that's part of it, the disconnect. And then when decisions are made from pain, from hearts that are broken, that just want to be loved, and things get twisted, ideas get twisted, circumstances, situations get twisted. And I do know that it's part of who we are as far as our story goes. But it's like, to do it well. To do it well. So you forgive yourself up until this point, and you choose every day, every moment. And then if it's a moment by moment choice, who do I want to be? Is this conversation with my friends part of who I want to be or not? Co-workers, family members, the choices that I make, is it building a solid foundation of who I want to be, or is it destroying that? It's a good little gut check, as I've heard before. A little check in with yourself. And again, we've never done this before. We don't have a clue what we're doing. But we still have to be accountable for our life and our choices. So when our hearts are broken, I know that we make choices that are in that alignment and in that path. And as our hearts hopefully heal, then our choices reflect that. So, I don't know. We get to choose. How fun is that? Are our desires life-giving or taking life away from us? I remember a certain person in my life saying, when he was walking through a season of, don't do anything that you wouldn't want put on the front page of the newspaper. And that was some training that he had been in. And I do think of that often, and I do reflect back on that, and that does make sense to me. So, don't do it. if you don't want it on the front of the newspaper, because people always find out. So, love yourself well, and have a good day. And maybe you can listen to this, maybe not.